3, 2, 1.
Hello, greetings and salutations, and welcome to the best goddamn Sonic podcast on the internet. Sorry for Adam.
Wow, that's
John
some
Campia.
praise there, man. You don't toot your own horn too much there.
Well, with all apologies to John Campia, because that's his intro for his movie podcast, so I'm ripping off that. But I do think we are a damn good Sonic podcast.
All right, damn good I can take, but best one? Oh, no, man. Go on, continue, please. I don't mean to steal your thunder.
Well, once again, I'm Malzilla, and this is another edition of the Sonic Hosts Coast to Coast podcast, broadcasting you from coast to coast, sea to shining sea. Across the Pacific is my good pal Radrey.
Hi.
Hi.
How you
and
doing?
Then on the other side of the United States, in the future, is I think we're gonna have to bump her up to like co-host or junior host or some rank that we have yet decided yet. Is Chauvel's back.
Well, hey, thanks for having me back.
All right. Well, we brought you back for a special reason, and that reason is I know for one that you are a big DC Comics fan.
Yes, I've been a DC Comics fan since I was a kid back in the 90s.
Now, I admittedly was always more of a Marvel guy, but I've watched enough, consumed enough DC information that I consider myself slight a bit of a savant in that department. And the reason we're talking about this DC Comics on a Sonic podcast is, well, this week was the release of something rather big and monumental, and that, of course, being the DC Sonic the Hedgehog crossover comic, a 5-issue, series written by our favorite Sonic writer. You know him, you love him. Well, some of you don't love him, but,
And you're wrong.
You're wrong, and you love to dunk on him, which is wrong. That, of course, being Ian Flynn. And art by the wonderful and always, sophisticated Adam Bryce Thomas. Though I do have some thoughts about lack of certain characters that he usually draws that are not in this series, so makes me sad. But
Yeah.
certain, they may show up, but nothing has been announced as of yet. So yes, Sonic and DC, they're doing a crossover, which is really kind of crazy. This issue is being written and produced by DC Comics, so IDW has nothing to do with it, except for, Ian and Evan and Bryce, the usual suspects of, the art teams, probably because it's just easier for DC to pull in the Sonic crew, because they're all freelance for IDW anyway, because it's probably easier to get the people who know what they're doing in that department into, these are all comic veterans. It's probably easier to have a Sonic veteran learn about DC than the DC's regular bullpen of writers and artists having to deal with all of Sega's guidelines for their characters. So, yeah. So I want to dive in for kind of a little bit of an overture before we get into the nitty gritty of this. Is that this is not Sonic's first crossover. It kind of feels like it because this is a big one.
No,
but it's not.
No.
Sonic did several different kinds of crossovers back in the Archie days. It did a lot of internal franchise crossovers where it did, obviously, you had the Sonic main book, you had the Knuckles main book, those books intertwined every so often, battles against Mammoth Mogul, yada yada. Obviously, when Sonic Universe popped up, that came in later on. They even crossed over with Sonic X momentarily when that book was out. So they've done a lot of internal.
And that was the Sonic X? Or was it?
Yeah, it was.
I don't know. That's like
it was relatively minor. It was basically main Archie Shadow was battling Metal Sonic, and they were chaos controlling across the dimensions, and they actually ended up in Sonic X for like 10 minutes.
Okay.
They had a whole thing. It was kind of weird.
I don't know if that counts, man, but sure.
Well, it's the main character. They're in the Sonic X universe interacting with the Sonic X characters.
Right,
like
fair.
Eggman he didn't like. He's like, "What is this metal Sonic? I don't know what it is." Like, oh, I made it, or another version of me made it. And then he says, "Shadow? What's Shadow?" And then he runs off to his storage room because Shadow was still on ice, after the SA2 adaptation. So it played with that a little bit. Sonic also kind of did some internal Archie crossovers where, if you remember from the Sonic special, he had a crossover with Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
And don't forget Spawn.
Yes,
I was
just
for some reason.
I actually I pulled up that issue, and there's a big word about on that issue where it turns out the sons of one of the co-founders of Image Comics.
I read this
were
too.
They were big Sonic fans. Yeah, so they were big Sonic fans. So ultimately, their dad was obviously, a big artist, him and Todd McFarlane. So he wanted to do something for his kids, so got to draw some Sonic, I think like in Sonic 60. And then they eventually, Penders got involved, and they did an company crossover where the Sonic hero, Sonic, Knuckles, and the Freedom Fighters ventured into the Image world. It's a weird episode. I mean, if you know anything about Spawn, he is a complete 180 and tonal from Sonic.
Different
company.
Tonal, everything.
Everything. It did give us that one meme-worthy panel of Sally giving bedroom eyes to some random guy from Image. So we've all memed on that.
The gaming apologist. That's who that is.
Gaming apologist. His it should have been me moment. Then of course,
for the record, he's the one who shared that, not us.
Yeah. If you know Nick, he's made this joke plenty of times. We have nothing but love and respect for the game apologist here on the Sonic Coast podcast. Later on, once Ian got involved, Archie also had the rights to do Mega Man, so they did the big Sonic Mega Man, which tonally fits more, and that was also kind of the vehicle they used to take out the old continuity and do the reboot continuity later on. It was actually pretty decent. I enjoyed it. It had a really fun bromance between Wily and Eggman. Mm-hmm. And then about 20 issues later, they did another one, but it was more of a Sega Capcom, so you saw different properties, like Street Fighter was there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't quite vibe with that. I mean,
I can't even remember, like, the other crossovers that were there besides Street Fighter and Mega Man.
Okay.
Oh, what was that?
Sally was petting Okami the wolf.
Oh, that's right. Okay, that was the moment I really enjoyed because I love the game. But you're right. It happened too quickly, and it's weird to say that, but it was like, it was like 20 issues apart. It still felt like, well, didn't it just happen?
Long. It's too damn long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, crossovers are nothing new to Sonic, though. They don't happen often, but they happen enough that this isn't completely unfamiliar territory.
Yeah.
Until now, because likewise in the past, obviously Image being its own thing, which again was kind of weird in its own way. In Mega Man, at least that's another video game franchise, so somewhat in the similar wheelhouse. We got some interesting news last year. It was the summer, and it was in the IDW fan letter section, which was kind of surprising at the time, where a fan had asked if Sonic was going to do a crossover because IDW had done crossovers with all of its properties. It's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have crossed over with just about every franchise known to man, except Sonic. So a lot of people thought it was going to be that. They had, IDW had done some crossovers with Boom Comics to do Godzilla and Power Rangers. Godzilla's also crossing over with Marvel and DC this year, which is kind of insane. But we're not a Godzilla podcast, though. I do have thoughts on that later. So yeah, this is something that they do, and everyone said, and they said it was going to be a big crossover. So I actually thought we were going to get a Sonic Godzilla again, different.
It's the way they phrased it as big,
Yeah, and so
and you think like, oh, probably they're being cheeky, and they mean like the size of.
well,
like,
that, and obviously Toho, a Japanese company, owns Godzilla. Sega, a Japanese company, owns Sonic. It's same theme wheelhouse, kind of, maybe, but
they could do the secret Japanese handshake, right?
Exactly. I'm if they did that, I'm the clapping seal. I'm the clapping seal. Take my money. But we didn't get any news until September 21st, which is my birthday, which was something I did not expect to get on my birthday. But it's also Batman Day. National Batman Day is my birthday. Crazy. And Sega released an animated short of Shadow as Batman.
Yeah, and when I first saw it, I thought it was like, oh, that's a really cute tribute Sega did. I wonder if there's some legal copyright issues with that, but it could be under parody.
Yeah, I never thought it was cool as well. It clearly wasn't just slapped together. There's some quality behind it. But then, like, in the Instagram comics or social media comics, there seemed to be some responses between Sega and DC of wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And everyone's like, is something coming? And in fact, there was, because like 3 days later, they had the Sonic Central, and Ivo announced that, yes, Sonic would be crossing over with DC, a 5-issue series, obviously, as we know, written by Ian Flynn. And apparently, this is just the beginning, because they did mention something in 2026, too. So yes, here we are in March of 2025, and the first issue is out. Now, before we get into the issue again, and I feel like I'm saying that a lot, I just kind of want to give our audience some background information on kind of the formula for these comic crossovers, because as cool as they are, it really, if you want to just strip everything away, this is basically kid in a sandbox with 2 action figures playing together. That's really it is. It's simple. It's simplistic. I love that kind of shit. I'm not going to lie.
Well, I have some thoughts about this, but yes, continue.
Yeah. So let me give the formula and you can give your thoughts. So usually, like you said, this is a 5-issue series. Most of these crossovers are roughly 5 to 6 issues. Issue 1 is usually setup. Issue 2 is the 2 heroes clash or 2 franchise clashes. 3, they make up and hang out. 4 and 5, they, do at battle, and then usually 5 or 6, whatever the end of the issue is, kind of the big resolution, hang out, have fun, and maybe tease something down the line. I'll get into where I think this issue kind of follows that formula, because it does, and I think it actually deviates a little bit to its credits. But Radrey, what do you think about this formula? I know you're not much of a formula guy, but
well, actually,
your voice be heard.
Oh no, actually, I wanted to hear more about I wanted to ask Chauvel first. Like, what did you think of this? Okay. What did you think about the whole comic before I give my thoughts?
I read it. I read it on yesterday, Thursday, and I read it again today. Not that I was like I'm missing some deep underlying points, but no, I just wanted to reread it again just to have it really fresh in my memory for the pod. I overall, I'm just gonna say I enjoyed this issue. I kind of liked it wasn't two misunderstandings, which happens a lot in the crossovers of any kind. There's a big misunderstanding. The 2 franchises, like once they establish their world, will start to clash and fight, and someone will say like, "No, you don't understand. They're not the enemies." They didn't do that here because I kind of like this approach of
that formula would get really tiring really fast.
Yeah, like this is the Justice League. They have seen weirder stuff than Sonic.
Here's the thing is, and to use a similar scenario is about 4 or 5 years ago, DC teamed up with Boom. DC printed and of course did a Justice League Power Rangers crossover. And again, they started off with the simple misunderstanding battle. You had Zack fighting Batman, and then Kimberly and the pterodactyl Zord kidnapped the Batmobile, and Superman had to knock on her window to ask her to park her pterodactyl Zord. It was pretty funny.
I'm gonna admit, if any character, it's weird to say this, but I would have put if I was reading a Power Rangers and DC crossover, I would have wanted to see the Power Rangers fight the Justice League even just for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
here, I was like, I hope they don't do that. Not because I'm just so possessive. It was more like it makes sense for me with Power Rangers for some reason because you grew up, we were watching it. The whole thing is centered around fighting bad guys. You kind of want to see them fight with their martial arts. Yeah. With Sonic, however, I felt like that would have been really contrived.
Because they're not really superheroes, because that's kind of, and Sonic even kind of mentions it in the comic. Mm-hmm. So, Radrey, unless you have, some initial thoughts you want to give, we can just kind of go into a brief summary of the issue.
Yeah, no. I mean, I guess, this gets my, average review of it's fine. It really does.
We need that soundbite of Radrey's going, it's fine.
And I can, and I know Radrey hasn't explained a lot about what he thought about the issue yet, but I think I already know I can understand what he means. As a DC Sonic fan for myself, and I think we're all like a little bit, even if we're not like a huge fan of one or the other. I know we're all here are huge Sonic fans. I think DC fans to various degrees. But as a huge DC fan and everything, I'm probably gonna side more with Radrey.
Oh, really?
I was actually
I was like, I liked it a lot, but this feels like, and I'm not blaming. I think this is gonna be a very, very paint by numbers crossover.
It feels that
probably
way, yeah.
will. Yeah.
And I wasn't expecting. To be fair, I wasn't expecting something more than that, honestly. So I kind of got what I want. But I understand if some folks are just going to be like, it's okay, it's doing nothing new. I say, I understand that, I do.
Yeah.
But it tingles in my nostalgia brain here of just like what Godzilla mentioned about taking two toys and smashing them together to have fun, to make a nonsensical crossover story. So I was like, okay, I can see where they're going with this. This is nothing new under the sun, but I'm personally enjoying this. The best I can describe it before I give it off to you guys is like, this feels like a free comic book day issue.
It does. It really does. It really does. Because let me tell you, I don't know how much you guys. Chauvel, you know a lot about the comic book industry here in the U.S., but yes. A lot of times, for our listeners who don't really engage much outside the Sonic sphere, which is
a shame. Go consume more media.
Go consume, do it. But a lot of times, what Marvel and DC and the other companies will do is they'll throw out these on Free Comic Book Day, which is like in May. They'll throw out kind of these free issues to kind of tease or promote bigger issue projects that they're going to be releasing that year. Kind of like, hey, we're this is big. Read this. Like, I remember this because this was such a bizarre crossover, and I forget which company was going to do it. They actually ended up canceling the Free Comic Book Day issue, but they were still going to do it. It was a this is for any of us '90s fans who, and even if crossover, is that they're doing a comic crossover of King Arthur and the Knights of Justice and Guinevere and the Jewel Riders. If you remember those '90s shows, hats off to you. And I remember reading this, I'm like, wow. Why did they come up with this idea like 20 years ago? Because it's almost perfect. But it's so crazy. But again, a lot of this stuff, kind of going back to the Sonic DC stuff, it's I got my Batman, I got my Shadow, they're going to have adventures. And that's kind of pretty much what this is. So let's kind of give a little brief rundown.
Hold on. I got to give you before we do the brief rundown, I'll throw my 2 cents here. I guess the only thing you really need to know about my thoughts about this is I give it 2.5 bags of money out of 5. That's my review.
That's fair.
My score's a little higher than that.
Okay.
Again, I am extremely biased. But go ahead.
We'll get into that. So, our story starts off in Sonic's world. We find that Sonic, Tails, and Amy are having a little picnic at Neverlake. And if you forgot where Neverlake is, see Sonic CD. And when
Oh,
out
may I
of
just say one thing about this opening?
yes,
Sonic having a picnic or a party for me, and this is me throwing off another franchise I love, is the equivalent of Dragon Ball, the current state of the franchise, always starting off with a party or barbecue. It's like
exactly. As soon as you say that, my mind thinks to the first Broly movie. It's like, yep, yep, yep. That's kind of how it starts.
it keeps they just keep doing that. I guess it gotta be an excuse to have them. Why is Amy and Tails there? Like a picnic is fine. That's all I wanted to say. That amuses
It's
me
the
to no
three of
end.
them, so it's not like a
Yeah.
full-on like
Yeah,
bash. But
true. It could have been. It could have been more, but God.
yeah. So out of nowhere, a giant sphere in the shape of the new god Darkseid from DC kind of appears. This thing is called the Ragnarok, and to my knowledge, is actually completely new. Ian, I think, has gotten away with actually adding to DC. So
Oh,
hats off
really?
to him for that.
Okay.
Yeah. So this, like, I
Yeah.
looked this up because like in DC, there's this thing called the War World, which belongs to the villain Mongol,
Hmm.
but he's separate than Darkseid. Then obviously,
It's.
Eggman's got
I had
the
to
Death
look it up.
Egg.
It's not Apocalypse either.
Yeah, because Apocalypse is a whole planet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not in the shape of Darkseid's face, but it's a
Hmm.
planet. So this was new, and Amy, and this is kind of where a lot of fans kind of started going, Ian Flynn, because she says that's not Little Planet, because obviously they're at Never Lake, and Little Planet pops up over in Never
Hmm.
Lake like once a year somewhere. I think that's the lore behind it. But out of the Ragnarok starts spewing out Darkseid's minions, the parademons, which are these kind of weird gargoyle type creatures, and they start attacking, and Sonic, Tails, and Amy start attacking back, only to realize that, well, they're a little overwhelmed, so they do a tactical retreat. Uh, Sonic grabs Tails' arm, and then he casually grabs Amy's hand, much to audience approval, and Amy's shocked because everyone's like, they're holding hands. Ah.
It wouldn't be the first time, guys, but I understand why. I think Adam Adam
Shippers.
Bryce time Adam Bryce Thomas did put a little bit of care into that panel, so I'm not even gonna say it's just coincidence. I think it was generally on purpose.
Oh, yeah. And so they zoom off. Now, while they head off to reconvene, we enter the Ragnarok, where the new god, Dark Lord of the planet Apocalypse, basically DC's version of Thanos, though Darkseid predates Thanos by 3 years in comic time, uh,
Hmm.
talks to his minion Desaad and saying that the thing that they are looking for is near. Which, of course, as we've known out, Darkseid's after the Chaos Emerald. For what reason, we don't know, but probably
Yeah,
something to do with
fairly
his usual
obvious.
yeah, I mean, it's probably something to find the anti-life equation, which we'll get into a little bit of that later. But as the Ragnarok is flying, it positions itself over Angel Island, and we see Knuckles battling some parademons and them talking about the Master Emerald and how, according to their father box, which is a sentient supercomputer, think Nicole on steroids and godlike knowledge, saying, "Hey, this Master Emerald can neutralize what we're looking for." Darkseid says, "Destroy it," and he says, "Well, why don't we take it first?" So he says, "Do I have to repeat myself? Destroy it." The Ragnarok fires on Angel Island, destroys the Master Emerald, and sends the island plummeting to the ocean. So, first off, hats off to Darkseid for actually doing something like
Yeah,
he's,
yeah.
he means business. Like, I mean, we've seen Knuckles break the Master Emeralds, and that's probably what's going to happen. But the cool thing with these little crossovers is that they are kind of their own little bubble pocket thing, so they can have some fun with it. But
Hmm.
props for him just saying, you know what, I'm not a kiddie version of Darkseid. I'm not like a parody you'd see on Teen Titans Go or the Harley Quinn show. And like, I'm Darkseid.
Which
I'm
I
gonna
was
nuke this.
expecting, so I give him credit for just sticking to Dark Side. Not that I have a problem with goofy Dark Side from Go or Harley Quinn; those can be really funny. But
Right.
I honestly thought that's the tone they're going to go for. But nope, this is dark side.
And he says, "Nope, it's gone," and they blow it up. Well,
We'll
Knuckles' fate is
see.
unknown at the time. Meanwhile, Sonic and company, they find Sunset. They run to Sunset City, which is getting swarmed by parademons, and Sonic says he's gonna go on ahead, leaving Tails and Amy in the dust. When suddenly, beside
Did you
him
notice
is
in the background that Tails face planted? No one said anything about that.
oh, you're right, he did. I'm looking at it right now. Oh, Tails. Oh, Tails.
Sorry to
But
mention that. I thought I laughed a little bit when I saw
it's
that.
funny. Well, this is when we get our first of the big hero meetups, where Sonic's speeding along. He finds himself running alongside a Scarlet Speedster, aka the Flash, who
Wait, is that
addresses
his
him.
name? Scarlet Speedster?
No, it's the Flash. That's the character's name. It's Wally West's
Well, I
version
mean,
of
is that
the
like
Flash.
because like they call Sonic the Blue Blur? Is that what they call the Flash? Because I don't know shit
Yeah,
from
it's one.
Shinola when it comes to
Yep.
DC. Okay, all right,
Yeah, so it's one of his, nicknames.
okay.
And
Just try to
Flash
confirm.
is.
Okay,
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Any questions? Feel free to ask.
I do have some questions, but continue, please.
Continue on. So Flash is running along, and he's surprised to see Sonic because he addresses him as Crackle. Now this is
Oh my god,
probably
this is a deep cut, even
this
for
is a
me.
this is typical Ian, where he is pulling out a deep DC reference. Now, for those wondering what the hell or who the hell is a Crackle,
I feel like I
is
was the only one who actually had a vague idea who he was until I had to look it up.
more people did than you realize. But
Okay, I thought this was an interjection. I really like Crackle.
Oh no! Let me send
Okay.
you the bio
Yeah.
of Crackle. See,
Yeah.
Crackle was introduced in 1998 as this blue audio energy creature that was a friend of Wally West, who was an homage to Sonic the Hedgehog.
Mm-hmm.
So he is D Sonic, who I think died like the issue he was introduced. So everyone started laughing, at least.
My goodness, just to see the cover of the other issue where he died. It's so silly. Like, even I vaguely remembered. I was like, Crackle? That's not who I think it is. So I had like, because it was 98. I remember the jokes about Crackle back, even like back in like early 2000s, where like you had like this site called Scans Daily where they talk about comics. So they made a lot of jokes about Sonic then too, and Crackle was mentioned briefly, and that's the last I've heard of this character. Ian, okay, you get DC cred just for that, just for remembering that character
on
at
the
all.
on what I like to call the Ian Flynn, a one being nice reference, two going, oh Ian, and three and five being Flynn. This is
You think it's like okay, Flynn's deep cut knowledge stops at Mega Man and Sonic, but no, apparently it goes to DC. That's why I said I have to give credit where credit's due.
and Ian deserves a lot of credit because he likes a lot of different things. If you listen to the Bumblecast, especially if you're listening now where he doesn't talk about Sonic, people are forced to ask him about other things, so you get to learn a little more about Ian's tastes. But back to the issue. After exchanging pleasantries, Flash says, "You must be one of the locals." He says, "Don't worry, I'll handle the parademons." And Sonic, spouts back, "That's adorable. You can help if you can keep up." And, Flash kind of says, "I'm the Flash. I'm Speed personified." And then Sonic says, "Well, I'm Speed perfected," and zoom past Flash. It's a wonderful, I'm faster than you, setting up their character dynamic as the two of them enter the city and start battling the parademons. But they're not the only one battling the parademons. For in the sky above Sunset City, we have our favorite time-traveling hedgehog, Silver, using his telekinesis to battle the parademons alongside Green Lantern John Stewart, who's probably my second favorite Green Lantern. I fully admit I'm a Guy Gardner fan. I do think Hal Jordan's
Wait, his name is
overrated.
John Stewart?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
John Stewart is his name.
All right. Not the
There's
Daily
a really
Show,
good
Jon Stewart.
joke
Not the
Okay.
Yeah,
Daily Show.
they
Okay.
actually acknowledged that a few times, both in the comics and the Green Lantern animated series they had for a short while.
Yeah.
Like they
Even-
actually really go like, "Don't worry, Jon Stewart will be here soon." And one of the characters would turn around and is like, "The fake news guy."
Oh God.
It's a
Yeah,
cute little nod that Jon Stewart
Okay.
actually exists in the DC
Yeah.
universe.
This is the Jon Stewart from, this is the Green Lantern from the Justice League cartoon. If you watched it back in the day, Justice League Unlimited. So,
Yes.
yeah, again, Green Lantern, it's a title, it's a post, you get a bunch of them. So, this is this version of the character. And the two of them start blasting away the parademons, giving fun little banter, and it's all very wholesome. And then we get to a page of no dialogue, because these characters are not chatty by nature, in which we see Shadow the Hedgehog and Batman team up to save some civilians from a parademon, only to then glance at each other or a farm and then leave without saying a word. I think the fandom is going to have a lot of fun with these two.
I
As
thought
the
that
series
dynamic
goes-
was perfect.
Yeah, it is. It is. It works perfectly. These are characters who don't need to say anything, just kind of glare, and that's all you need to know.
Mm-hmm.
The scene shifts again this time it's Tails and Amy as they encounter some, I don't know if it has a specific name, but some apocalyptic robot of Darkseid starts attacking them.
Wouldn't be
They
surprised that's a reference to something too.
probably. But they are saved by the combination of the lasso of truth and the sonic boom cannon, with a classic booyah from Cyborg, and Wonder Woman come in to help them out.
Is that something Cyborg always says? Booyah.
He said in Teen Titans, the original Teen Titans cartoon.
Okay.
The first Teen Titans, it kind of stuck. It became his catchphase.
Because he says it in like the Justice League movie, doesn't he? If I
Yeah,
remember correctly.
the actor
Okay.
actually had grievances for saying that.
That's
in
what
the
I
movie.
thought. I'm like, what?
But that's like the actor's problem. I don't have
Okay.
a problem with the character saying "booyah." Personally speaking,
Especially when it's Kyrie Payton voicing him. He does.
Yeah.
He's got it perfected. So
Okay. This isn't like a big oof moment for the character.
no, this is not a
Okay.
big oof. Like I know some people will agree. It's like, yeah, he shouldn't have to say it's degrading. It's like it's not. I like Cyborg saying "booyah." I think it's fun. Stop. One actor didn't want to say it in the movie, given the context of the scene, which I understand. But his catchphrase is there's no problems with that. Just personally speaking, right
Booyah
there.
gate.
yeah, exactly. Big booyah oof. But then their greetings are interrupted by the arrival of Calabac. Calabac is the son of Darkseid and jobber extraordinaire, to the point that he, in the
Oh my
Superman
God, that's an
Justice League,
understatement.
What's an
he's voiced
understatement?
by Michael Dorn in the
Oh,
cartoon.
that Kilovac is like a giant jobber, like canonically in every iteration.
Oh, really?
He shows up
Anytime he
in.
shows up, he gets his ass kicked. Like, he's
Yeah,
voiced
he
by
is.
Michael Dorn. He is the definition of the Worf effect. Like, he shows up, he gets his butt kicked. And as soon as he shows up, Knuckles comes in, punches him into the ground, and he says, that was for dropping my island out of the sky. And Cowback tries to save face, saying, I could barely fit that, when out of nowhere is the big blue Boy Scout himself. Superman flies in and kind of stunts on him and smashes him further into the ground. And he says, did you feel that one? And Knuckles complains and says, I wasn't done with him, Superman. And he says, sorry, Knuckles, that was for softening him up for me.
And I
Now,
like how they off screen they kind of, because I reread it, think I missed something. They kind of off screen implies that Knuckles and Superman already met.
yeah, he actually explains in the next scene, because Amy asks, like, why are you here? Why are you on Angel Island? And he says, well, they blew up the Master Emerald. Angel Island fell into the ocean, and Superman saved me, and Superman is remorseful, wishing he could have done more to prevent that. So, Superman being Superman, even though this is not his world, he cares about people. And
I want to interject here a little bit. I want to talk about. Can we talk about this moment for just one moment?
yes,
All right.
Take as many moments as you'd like.
No, because like when I read this, I literally said out loud, "This happened off panel." I'm reading this and I'm like, why didn't we see this? I mean, like I had to go back and like, okay, I will stress that I read this digitally, and I hate reading comics digitally. I really do, because when I'm on my phone, it's all about go 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 go, right? Because I need to get through so many things really quickly, and it's not like with a book where I can just sit down and I can casually read, by page. And I noticed like I skipped certain parts. Like I said, wait a minute, the floating island is gone. And I'm like, I skipped that page. I don't know how I skipped it, but I skipped it.
You scrolled right past it.
I scrolled right past it, And I mean, one thing I will say about this so far, what my eyes, when they looked at the page, when they transferred to my brain, they told me, well, this action is very nice. It looks nice, right? I'm getting this very surface level, like kind of reading of the book. And then when I'm reading this right now, and like as I'm talking to you right now, do you think they cut this part out because of time, or not? I guess not time, or
I think it's a page count thing.
You think
like
so?
We have, I think, how many pages was this issue? It had to be like
usually most things are like 20 pages.
Yeah, like 20, 22 pages.
Okay,
and sometimes just
a very
form of
finite
writing,
amount of.
Yeah, something's gonna have to give, and I actually didn't mind at least that part being explained off screen. That's fine. I'm fine with that. I understand you have we have a total of 4 issues, not even 6.
It's 5, yeah. So yeah,
5. I thought it was 4.
It's 5.
Okay, good. But yeah, even that can be like, well, that's plenty, and then you'd be surprised that someone who draws comics all the time, not professionally right now, but someone who draws comics, yeah, you'd be surprised how quickly you go through pages and trying to tell a story.
Right. Well, because generally, I mean, my background is more like film. I I went to school for, studying filmmaking and stuff. So I understand that, like, you kind of expect your audience to just be smart enough to, like, put the pieces together. Like, whether you could, like, when you're doing editing, you can kind of make people, like, laugh because, you set something up and then you have a quick result, right? But with here, when I'm looking at this, the only issue I have with this is like the rest of the book. I mean, spoilers. Well, I guess not spoilers. You're listening to the show. A lot of it is like they end up like just sitting there and talking about who they are and what they do. And I'm like, this isn't really that interesting. I don't
feel
this.
Like if you're a fan of either or, yeah, you know the backstory, and it's an introduction to both not only Sonic's characters, but the Justice League. And I'm putting myself outside of being a fan.
Okay.
If I'm only a DC fan and I'm reading this for the first time, I'll know who Sonic is and Tails, and maybe even Amy, and now Shadow because of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I probably wouldn't know who's the Silver guy. Is that from that really bad video game? I'm just putting myself out of this for a second.
Yeah.
And if I'm a huge Sonic fan and I don't bother with DC media, I'll know who the big 3 are. Cyborg to an extent because of the movie, but like earlier, Radrey, you like, that's his name, Jon Stewart. It's like, yes. So I think the way Ian is writing, and probably the way editorial wanted him to write, is like, hey, you're just write as if neither fans know who the hell these guys are.
And
like,
we'll
it's a brief introduction to everyone.
A little bit more. It's just kind of debate who's the audience for this, because I wanted to bring that up later.
Yeah, that's something I thought we can get into later.
Yeah. So after Knuckles and Soup kind of they're sad face because Angel Island got nuked. Batman and Shadow show up and say, "Hey, there's a lull we need to kind of plan." And Shadow demands, "Who the hell are you guys?" He didn't say that, but he's basically asking the question from their perspective: what the heck's going on, and who the heck are these people? Now, right as he says this, Flash and Sonic zip into the scene and compare that Sonic took out 248 parademons, while Flash took out 249, but then Sonic's adding, well, I took out a bunch more at Neverlake, so that makes me better. So then we
I
get
like this little exchange. That was really fun.
and I think this is like a lot of what we're seeing now is in a typical 5 to 6 issue. It's usually something that you see in like issue 3, and they've kind of put it in issue 1, and it actually makes it flow a lot more better, in my opinion. So obviously Sonic initiates, we have this wonderful piece of artwork of Sonic and Company and the Justice League, and they said, hey, let's all introduce ourselves, blah, 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 and catch us up to speed. And, especially for Flash, since he's so slow, Sonic's taking as many shots at him as he can. Of course, they...
yeah, if I may interject here a little bit, I do... One of the things why I read a Sonic book is I love seeing his interactions with some of these other characters. Like, when I'm watching, when I was playing Frontiers, the best part of Frontiers was his interaction, in my opinion, with Knuckles and Tails. Like when you have these, this kind of push-pull kind of
character
technique.
Moments.
Yeah, and I think what he did here with Flash was entertaining. It feels right. It doesn't feel like I'm I'm reading a writer trying to figure out how to write these characters. I'm not feeling that.
Yeah. Which I'm so glad Ian is
I'm with you 100%. And this is why I actually really like this. Because it gives you... While there's not a whole lot of action or, Sonic versus the Flash, there's these wonderful character beats where you kind of see, even in the limited amount of dialogue, who these characters are, and that the writer, Ian, knows them very well. Like, obviously, we know that he knows the Sonic cast. He's been writing them for 25 years now, it feels like. But, and he's done a little work for DC in the past, but nothing to this level. So... we give these wonderful introductions. They're all waving and smiling and yada yada. But Knuckles says enough with the pleasantries. He wants to know who's responsible for them and how do they make them pay. Now, of course, then Cyborg gets into exposition mode, talking about Darkseid and how he's after the anti-life equation, which is basically a math problem that if he finds, he can enslave all of the universe. Typical bad guy stuff.
Yeah.
And they talk about how since Cyborg has some new god tech in him, he was able to track Darkseid's movements and saw that he, unleashed the Ragnarok, which can cross dimensions. And, they followed him from their world to Sonic's world, and they're trying to figure out what he's up to. Silver makes a comment and says, oh, he's got to be after the Chaos Emeralds. And Sonic's just like, why is it always the Emeralds? It's a meme face, but it works really well.
Yeah.
I'll say this. The art's great, and there's plenty of meme faces in this, but it feels somewhat appropriate. Tails kind of explains what they are to the Justice League, and they said, okay, well, we need to team up and do fun stuff. We get to this great panel of Wonder Woman literally towering over Knuckles, to the point where I feel like she literally would just walk right over him.
I feel like it's that I immediately wanted to thought of that stupid meme of that woman with the microphone wearing the blue dress just towering over this short muscled guy.
Oh yeah, the meme, yeah. Tall queen, short king.
Yes.
So Superman says, let's do it, let's confront. Shao says, you know what, I don't have time for this, I'm out. And Superman tries to say, hey, we value in everyone's opinion, but Bruce says, I'll handle this. Now, we get probably the page which just garnered...
People forget that Bruce's other superpower is sensing trauma.
Is that true?
No, I am making that up, but it's hilarious.
It makes sense. It checks out. I'm not saying it's like a superpower, but he has the, I don't know, intuition, you could say.
He's the goddamn Batman. He's the world's greatest detective. Who knows childhood trauma better than Bruce Wayne? I mean, again, this is a guy who, when he crossed over with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the first thing he did was take Raphael to Crime Alley and said, this is where my parents were murdered, Raphael. So he obviously gets the jump on Shadow and automatically asks the question of, who was it? And Shadow's like, what? It's like, the one you couldn't protect, the one you watched die in front of you. It's like, how would you obviously, and it says my trauma senses are tingling, and then he kind of trauma dumps on Shadow about my parents were killed in front of me, blah blah blah, and then the anger, the pain, and Shadow obviously references Maria. We get a nice little flashback of the gun invasion, a gun soldier actually holding a gun, and then Batman tells Shadow that he swore he would never let what happened to his parents happen again. He's going to protect the city, the world that his parents love, and he's going to use every advantage to his disposal. That includes the Justice League. He says Shadow would be a valuable asset to stopping Darkseid. Likewise, would be valuable to you. Shadow relents and makes a comment, "You better be worth the trouble."
Let me interject here.
A nice page moment here. I know it's one
to
page,
the main
but
group,
I really
Tails.
liked it.
Yeah, this is going to be when people think about this comic, years from now.
You
this
think
is
so, huh?
I feel like
this is the panel they're gonna use a lot when referencing this issue.
Like, there's a Spider-Man X-Men miniseries from about 7 years ago, and it became famous for the scene of Sauron, who's a pterodactyl vampire mutant villain in X-Men, riding a Triceratops, telling Spider-Man he doesn't want to cure cancer, he wants to turn people into dinosaurs. It's just one of those things that became a meme. It's referenced everywhere, and no one knows where it came from. I feel like this is going to be that same thing, but this is kind of like, obviously Shadow is now really in the public eye because of the movie.
Yeah.
Everyone knows who Batman is. Everyone knows their histories.
Trust me, give it 10 years and there'll be some, like, a younger generation will post it up as a joke. Say, hey, remember that time Batman met Shadow? And that'll be the page.
And they talked about their dead loved ones.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
I did not get that out of this page, but okay. What I got in this page, I'm like, I know this stuff already. I didn't really like this page, to be honest with you. I could have skipped it, but like I can see that I'm very wrong. That people, it seems like it sounds like people would love. You think that people would love this page?
Online.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the page.
People like it.
Is basically, this is the page if you like Google or DC Sonic on social media. This is the page that everyone's freaking out about. They think this is. The great. I've seen fan art of like Batman hugging Shadow already.
Oh my god.
Stop. Link it.
I'm joking. Go ahead.
I'm sharing it right now in the group chat. You can all partake. People are already making jokes like, oh, here's Bruce's next Robin. He's already got Jason Todd's
I like this one.
It's pretty good.
Pretty good.
Our audiences are just loving this. Well, let's talk about something nobody can see. Good luck finding it, my dudes. That's all I'm gonna say.
Imagine Batman giving Shadow a hug and roll with it.
Yeah,
so
it's cute. It's not pornographic for our listeners out there.
Very adorable.
Back to the group. Tails says he's been developing a radar. He's tracked the emeralds before, but nothing on this short notice. Cyborg asks him, like, what kind of tech are you working with in there? And he's like, well, it's a speculative quantum mapping algorithm, but it isn't out of beta yet. And he kind of says embarrassed. And Cyborg, I don't even know how to describe this photo. I can't. Is he like? He has this weird look on his face. Says, okay, hold up, I have to see this. So they decide to split up and go emerald hunting. Tails flies off with Cyborg. Tails mentions his arm blaster from Lost World and how he'd like to work on it. And Cyborg says, unless you want to power it through your living organs, I can't really help. It's like, okay, never mind. We get this.
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm good. And we get this this wonderful I know we're talking a lot about Shadow and Batman and Sonic and Flash, but I think the Superman Knuckles conversations are really good. And Knuckles says, your whole world is gone and its remains poison you? That's too cruel. And he says, maybe, but I cherish my life on Earth. It makes it all the more important I keep it safe. He says, you're all right, Soups. You're all right. He doesn't call him Superman, he calls him Soups. So Knuckles and Clark are now besties.
Let me ask you something. Is Soups a word that's used outside the boys? I've only heard that word inside the boys. Okay.
Yeah, that's Soups and used, wow, like you can go back a long time of them using soups. Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
obviously
it's
it's
certain
been
character, not everyone, but
uh,
every now and then there'll be a
short for
character that'll say it.
superheroes.
Okay, so full
Superman.
disclosure, I really do not read comics that much. I don't.
Yeah.
So I'm going to need all the help I can get. So forgive me for the ignorant comments if I make any.
Oh no, it's fine.
No,
Not,
your
you always go.
perspective is
I like to
valued.
go. Yeah, because you got to remember, you got to go in thinking like not everyone's gonna read everything. Even if it's been around like forever, it's like don't expect everyone to read everything. I don't personally. I hate it when people say like, "How do you not know John Stewart?" And I'm thinking like, not everyone's a dumb nerd like we are.
Well,
Like,
does everybody watch the same thing anymore? Nobody does.
yeah,
You know?
it's like calm down, just explain it and be cool. Explain it like it's someone's first time viewing it, and like
You know what? I do on that note, I do want to say it has actually been kind of refreshing because I've seen a
hmm
lot of DC fans on Twitter and X or whatever the fuck you want to call it these days. They've been posting
Zitter.
a lot of like who is this character to like Sonic fans. Like it's like, hey, this is who Calabac is. Like in kind of like you might not know them. It's a deep cut, so it feels like there's this very sincere, trying to share knowledge so everyone can enjoy it, which is kind of refreshing in
Oh,
this
tell me about it.
online
Yeah.
world we live in, where it's like, well, you don't know this, you're a nerd, you're a loser, blah blah blah. It's like, hey, you've probably never heard of him. Here's the 411.
Oh, I've always been
He's
a
a
loser.
jobber.
This is nothing new.
Not to us, Radrey, not to
Yeah.
us.
Okay.
We get a wonderful scene between Wonder Woman and Amy. They're flying along. Amy's in her little car with her hover abilities, and Diana seems impressed. She says, "It's nothing. You can fly." But she says, "I like flying my invisible jet." And then Amy's like, "You have an invisible jet?" It's very cute. And then we have a Batman and Shadow riding their motorcycles stoically. No comment.
Yes. No comment.
And then again, we once see Tails and Cyborg upgrading his, Tails' tech, and then we see Silver and John kind of talk about telekinesis versus the power ring, the Green Lantern rings, and
Yeah.
then we see Sonic in a Flash running across the water, and it says it's really all natural, no crazy mad science treadmill accidents or nothing. To which Sonic replies, "What you see is what you get. I'm just a hedgehog who loves adventure." Which gets about a 3.5 on the Ian scale of
Yeah.
okay.
Yes. Okay, I want to before I forget to bring this up. When I read a lot of this, I mean, maybe this is just a me problem. I don't know, but like I've said before in like other episodes of the show, where when I first heard the announcement for the DC, Sonic thing, and like who was playing which characters. Sorry, spoilers if you guys don't know, but well, obviously it's pretty obvious from this book if you can't tell already. But no, the one thing is that when I first came up with this, or what is it? When Ian revealed this idea, I kept saying to myself, this sounds like a Bumblecast question. Like, what would you do if Sonic were in the DC world, right? And like, I can't.
You're not wrong.
No, and
You're
then
not wrong.
and so the
Oh
thing
my
was,
gosh, it really is.
This is a Bumblecast question. Oh my!
Wow.
well, it's just sort
it
of
makes this even better. This makes it
because
even better.
well, because it's just sort of like every panel, I'm kind of expecting to see like Ian Flynn's avatar, like the one he uses for the Bumblecast, to be in like the top
Ian
right
and
corner,
Kyle, like floating in the background,
Yeah,
like,
or something like that.
semi-transparent.
right? But
I see it now, and I can't unsee it.
well,
I love it.
the one problem I have with this is that I mean, they might as well just do it at some point, where it's just sort of like they might just have like Ian Flynn and like like one of those like ventriloquist dummies sort of things, and have them like saying some of Sonic's line. I mean this in the best possible way. And I know this sounds kind of condescending, but I'm just saying sometimes there's some of these dialogues where I can't get like. I can't stop thinking of Ian, writing some of this. Now, with this being said, I want to say about. I'm going to use this word "interject" like 100 times. Just somebody write this down. How many times I use this word? But I did reread the Image comics, the Archie crossover with Sonic, and I'm like, oh man, I can only hear Ian Flynn's voice. And then, like, I started reading the Image one, and I'm like, I can't finish this Image comics because I can't stop hearing Ken Pender's voice. Like, I'm done. I was done with the Image one way before I was done with this one. So.
You didn't drop it after Ken basically put in an X-Files ripoff of.
Well, like, that was the thing. Like, to digress a bit here, that's when I dropped off, and I'm like, I started saying to myself, I'm like, oh, does Image own the X-Files license? Is that why they're in here? And, like, is that why they have their name? Why? I'm like, wait a minute. Why are their names all screwed up? Because their names aren't Scully and Mulder. They're like Skirble and Burble or something. Yeah, and then I'm like, something's wrong here. Why are they using different names? And of course, I look it up, and yes, it's a parody. And, like, that's the point when I'm like, all right, I'm done. I'm done with this. But I did finish this one, so I could not finish the other one.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can go to the next 4 issues.
No, I should be
it's
fine.
out.
I should be fine. I have some comments at the end, but please, Malzilla, continue.
Yeah. Well, we're kind of wrapping this issue up as we do actually get a fun little this one's a little lesser on the Ian scale of when he references no crazy mad science treadmill accidents. That is actually an allusion to if you know your U.S. American Sonic crazy ideas from the early days where before he was, when it was Ovi Kinto Bar before Ivo Robotnik. Sonic was a brown hedgehog who was on a treadmill experiment that turned him blue. This was all some of those early Sonic US Bible stuff.
Yeah, they didn't have.
Wait, what are we talking about?
I hate to say Fleetway, but this is basically the UK Sonic.
Yeah, they use that more.
Well, I mean, where are you referencing? Which panel? Which one are we talking about?
When they're running on the water, and he asks him if his speed's all natural. There wasn't an accident. Because a lot of times superheroes, they get their powers through accidents, and he's referencing Sonic treadmill, which is actually a really
Yeah, he's
Sonic
referencing how I didn't get my. Basically, I didn't get my powers from a treadmill science freak accident, which is a reference to UK Sonic comics.
The kinetic gyroscope.
How the hell does Ian remember this goddamn stuff?
It's his
I
mutant
remembered
power.
it too.
Okay. All right.
It's his mutant
I'm
power.
just as big as a nerd. It's like, oh, okay, I get that reference. Ha ha.
Huh.
That's Ian. He has copious amounts of useless Sonic knowledge that he is just waiting to
good
unload.
for him, because if I knew all that knowledge and I had nothing to do with it, I'm putting it into a comic. At least I feel like it's going to some use.
I don't know. I mean, I've talked to Malzilla about this, before, but I half like this and I half hate this at the same time. But anyway, continue.
Time of references used, Radrey is like, enough.
Well, I mean, there's references to where it's cute, but there's references where there's too many. And it starts to become I don't know, Rogue One, if you remember in Star Wars, where they just inundate that with just nonstop references. And it got to the point with Rogue One where I'm like, all right, enough with the references, man. Just focus on the damn story. I don't need to remember this old damn reference. Maybe one or two, you can sprinkle them in. But don't put so much goddamn paprika on this thing, man. Anyway.
Many Bothans died to bring you this reference, Radrey.
What died?
It's a Star Wars
reference.
Oh,
in Return of the Jedi, when they bring out the Death Star plans, Mon Mothma says, "Many Bothans died to bring us this information." Yes,
I'm glad I didn't get that one because I'm not that much of a Star Wars person. I'm not. I should be, but I'm not.
It's fine. Well, we see, speaking of references, because we got.
I know. There's more to come. I know.
Yeah,
I know.
There's still more.
There's still more, and this is the one where I both love and I absolutely hate the final line of this comic, and I'm gonna be honest, but let's get to that. So as the two are running across water, so this is again showing that Sonic can run on water. He is Blue Jesus after all. The two of them,
you need that Christian money.
Exactly. So Sonic says, Flash asks him, "Is this the place?" And Sonic says, "Yes." Yep. When in doubt, start with South Island and go from there. So we're back in Green Hills, and lo and behold, Flash and Sonic find Darkseid with the Scion Chaos Emerald. And he says, "Is that the guy Red?" He says, "Yeah." And with the Chaos Emerald in hand, Darkseid turns to Sonic, Flash, in the audience and says with a smirk on his face, "It all starts with this, a gem containing the ultimate power." And that's where we end off the issue on Darkseid ripping off Shadow's introduction into Sonic Adventure 2. Somewhere Shadow is like, "Get me my lawyer, I'm suing this guy." And I both love the fact that he used the line and hate it because it's just like, this is where I'm with Radrey. I'm like, oh, come on. There's no creativity. I mean, it's funny as hell to see it coming from Darkseid. And I know some people said like they've heard in their mind Michael Ironside, who was, the actor who voiced Darkseid in most of his animated appearances, say it.
Well, I didn't know that. Huh.
Yeah, Michael Ironside played Darkseid through all of the DC animated universe.
Yeah.
In like the first half. Oh, great casting! He's fantastic. He also voiced him for like the first part of Harley Quinn, but they switched over to Keith David for the
reasons
for the Kite Man show.
Mm-hmm.
Actually,
deep booming voice checks out.
To be fair, I love Keith David in anything, so that was fine.
Yeah, Keith David's a fantastic voice actor, and he's obviously we all watched Gargoyles as a kid, right?
Of course.
I had the VHS, I think.
Yeah.
That really big box, like the oversized box. What the hell? Anyway.
Nah. But yeah, he Keith is a great. He's got such a distinctive voice. But he voiced Darkseid in some of the recent Harley Quinn stuff, and where he's menacing, but he's also kind of humorous. And so I heard him say this line. I'm like, okay, it works a little better. I just can't hear Michael Ironside say this. So
I actually have no problems hearing that.
I don't take issue with this last line. I could see why it would take some people out. I'm fine with it.
Again,
hopefully
to me,
this will be the last of the
Paprika.
member berries.
Member berries.
Remember Sonic Adventure 2? The game that we just saw.
Hopefully, Ian got out of his system in this first issue.
I hope so too. Because that one was kind of I hate it, but I love it. So all in all, that's the issue. I enjoyed it. I probably say I'm going to give it about a 4 out of 5.
Wow. Okay, that's quite the review.
Yeah, I mean, again, I liked it because it didn't quite follow the standard, formula. As much as it'd been kind of fun, and we talked about this a little earlier, to see Sonic and company throw down with the Justice League. It's like, we don't need it. Let's focus on what people want to see, and that is the interactions of these characters, these character moments, like, Knuckles and Superman flying, them being despondent over failing at Angel Island, Shadow and Batman trauma dumping on each other, Sonic and Flash trying to outwitting each other, Cyborg and Tails geeking out over tech, Amy and Wonder Woman being ladies. I'm sorry, they didn't get much.
At least they didn't talk about men, which is fine.
There you go. Let's go. They talked about
passes the Bechdel test.
Passes the Bechdel. Talked about cars and jets.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
Converting expectations, and then kind of Silver and John talking about powers. So it focused on that, which is what people wanted. So that's why I appreciate it. The art's really good. There's some meme faces that work. There's some meme faces that don't. I think the dialogue is very true to the characters. There's some references that do work. There's some that are some grading, but overall, it's more positive than negative. So as a way to just get the ball rolling, this was a good start, and I'm looking forward to reading the following issues. So that was my initial thoughts. Do you guys have anything?
I'll have my initials just to wrap up, to give the score at the end of my thoughts. Like I said, I'm a big DC fan. I've been one since I was in a comic book shop, bought my first Batman issue and everything like that. More so than Marvel. So this was like a really big treat for me. I was like, when they announced like Sonic Cross DC, I felt I was the only one who was just like who said yes instead of like I did both. Yes, and what is this about? That's kind of like random. But at the same time, I really enjoy this issue. I do get though Radrey's point of view, and probably I'm pretty sure he's not the only one that shares that opinion. I've been on subreddits where people are just DC fans as well. Yes, I go on Reddit, but people have similar opinions in saying that, hey, it's kind of paint by numbers. It feels more for a very younger audience. This doesn't feel like anything new is presented to the table. It's okay at best. For me, I'm not even in the middle. I'm just gonna be quite honest. I really like this issue. I'm giving it a 4 out of 5.
Okay.
I because it's Sonic fan, DC fan, characters were. That's the only thing I really hoped for. It's like, please, as basic as the story and the plot will be, at least get the characters right. And that's weird saying in 2025. Like, how do you write Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman? A lot of writers seem to not know how to write these characters, even in movies and comics. It's like how are you messing up this hard? But Ian seemed to have stuck the landing in this first issue.
Well, he's a comic
I'm really
writer.
looking forward to the next one.
He should have a pedigree and
You
understanding.
think?
You would think.
I read
Really?
comics.
That's bad, huh?
Radrey, I read comics. You'd be surprised how badly they fuck up. Oh, sorry for the cursing. Oh
No,
yeah, I
please
can curse
do.
here. But
Yeah,
how
This
badly they
podcast
mess
is
up.
rated E for explicit.
Like how
So.
badly they mess up the characterization so easily. Just to give you a small example.
All right.
On next week they're releasing a Harley Quinn comic.
Okay.
That's all about her farting.
What?
I kid you not. Maybe Godzilla heard about this too.
I did, and I hated myself as soon as I heard it.
Just
It's
all about Harley farting and making a very strong point about why can't women also toot. I was like, what? I
Apparently-
don't.
Sounds like
DC also decided
NSFW,
to-
like fetish stuff. Like what?
It is. It feels like it, and plus it's a scratch and sniff comic.
Okay. What is this, like the
It's-
gross out
it's a-
90s or something? Okay.
It feels like the Garbage Pal Kids. and
Yeah,
stuff
like the
that. I guess
Garbage
they're
Pal
trying to
Kids
bring it
version
back.
of Harley Quinn. Okay.
And this is just a small example of you're missing the point of these characters.
Is it like, are they
And
not
that's
getting
just a
enough
more recent
attention?
example.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt. I mean, are they not getting enough attention from like the world or something? They have to degrade themselves to like this?
I don't know why they're doing this, and that's just one recent example. But yeah, in comics, it's like an up and down roller coaster. It's
It's like almost, if we're being honest, it's a kind of a slowly dying medium. And you know,
that's what
sometimes
people will say, but I have my critiques about that. My critiques, my own
it's a
opinions
very
about
generalized
that. But
statement.
yeah, it's a very general statement.
It's a
We'll
general
get to
statement.
that another time.
yeah, that's a conversation for a whole nother podcast. But
Mhm.
a lot of it is clickbait, outrage. Like, how can we get people invested, either good, bad, or doesn't was it no news? Like, the only bad news is no news. So as long as you're
Mhm.
talking about us, that's the thing. So let's write a book about farts, and
they just
make it
need that
hard to
Yeah.
spend.
skibbity toilet money. It must be that.
That was
Must
that too.
be.
Must be that.
For those reading, please don't buy the book. Don't encourage this.
Don't roll with your wallet and don't buy it.
I know it's gonna be tempting. Like, I gotta see how bad this is. Just ignore it, please. I'm not even telling you to pirate it. I'm just telling you to ignore it entirely.
We're telling you to
No,
privateer it, personally. Sorry. I'm so sorry.
Under the construct
Yes.
of the royal majesty.
Yeah.
So general consensus, we all like it to varyingest degree. This is not offensive to us as Sonic fans. I don't want to put words in your guys' mouth.
No, it's not offensive from a Sonic or even DC fan point of view. I think they did a really good job. I'll be wrong to not even mention this. Adam Bryce Thomas, damn, you're knocking this issue out of the park, if I may
It's
say.
very good.
You're drawing Batman and Supes like you've been drawing them your whole life. Especially Wonder Woman is gorgeous. All the characters look great. Sonic characters, of course, we know how well he can draw them, knock them out of the park each time. But from Batman and Wonder Woman, and Clark, Semi Superman being my favorites. Just the way they're drawn, it just feels like he's been on this book forever. I know he tweeted recently that he'll love to do like I guess a special cover, like a B cover for one of the futures, one of the issues that'll eventually come out. And I hope DC will give him like he's ready to the interiors. Let him do a special B cover or something. It'll be really great.
That's awesome too. Well, let me ask you this for both of you. What was like? What are the moment? And we kind of talked a little bit. Like, what were the moments that stood out to you? Good, bad, or just indifferent?
Let's see. The good would be this is where my parents died shadow moment with Batman. Uh
The trauma dumping.
Trauma dumping was my because I'm being a DC fan. One of my favorite superheroes is Batman. So that Batman Shadow doing the interaction was fun. The the bad or the so not really interested was just kind of hard to think because I really liked a lot of the pages. I was even going through it. I think it was just like the member berries. Could be a little bit too much sometimes.
Hmm.
And it's not a particular page. It's more like, I hope you don't continuously pull out references, Ian. Like, bring it back a little bit.
Yeah, I don't
Get it
know.
out of your system.
Yeah, I mean, you could get real ham-fisted with those kind of references, you know.
Hmm.
I
Um,
will say he did not quote any of the songs in this issue.
Yeah, no
And
one
that's
says we better live and learn.
yet.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for John Stewart to say it's no use.
okay. Huh.
Why would you bring that into the universe?
It's gonna happen.
It's yeah, you've just cursed us.
Now we're waiting for it.
Mhm.
One thing that I am kind of surprised, and I know he's going to show up later in the show issues because they actually just released the solicits for issue 4. Eggman isn't in this issue at all.
Yeah,
Like-
He's still having his, you know, his real world problems with what he said on Twitter. That's why.
Oh boy, that's a can of worms.
Yes,
Um,
it is. Yes, it is.
Well,
Yes,
I was
Melzilla.
gonna say, what was your favorite moment, Radrey?
Well, I mean, like what Chauvel said. I mean, the artwork is very nice. I'm not so sold on how he draws humans, though. I think their eyes are a little
really.
too big.
I kind of like that. I kind of like it because it fits within the world. I was kind of afraid that it'll be drawn before I knew Adam Bryce Thomas was going to be doing the interiors. I thought at first it was going to be drawn a little bit too comic booky, like smaller eyes, a lot of cross hatching, just like, and it would just look so weird next to like the Sonic characters. So I'm kind of liking the whole. They're a bit more animated, I would say.
All right, that's fair. I mean, unfortunately, that's probably only the best thing I have to say about it. You know what? Automatically, as soon as I finished reading it, as soon as I put it down or I turned my phone off or whatever it is you do after you finish reading something,
Mhm.
do you remember Cartoon All Stars to the Rescue?
Yeah.
Yes.
I would,
They showed that to me in school.
yeah, that's
We all
immediately what
saw
I
it in
thought
school.
of. And I'm like, wait a minute. So if Cartoon All Stars to the Rescue was about marijuana and, you know, the dangers of, you know, partaking in, you know,
Sonic says,
yeah,
"That's
Sonic
no
says,
good."
yeah.
Sonic says.
I started asking myself, what is this one about? And it kind of made me ask the question, who is Darkseid? So I guess this is the question I have for both Chauvel and yourself. Could you explain to me who Darkseid is? I know you talked about it a little bit. You said he's kind of like Thanos, but not Thanos.
He's Thanos, except that instead of wiping out half the universe, he wants to, of course, do the whole I want to take over the entire universe using this He think it's like how Thanos wanted to do the famous snap. Darkseid is looking for the anti-life equation, which was explained to have the ultimate power in the universe. Darkseid is very when he's not looking for that, he's enslaving worlds basically. The big one being the one that hit his own world, Apocalypse, and he just conquers worlds, and Superman and the gang has to stop him from taking over Earth, and et cetera, et cetera. Darkseid is my in the DC universe, he is a force to be reckoned with.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's not like a.
He's
not
created
even
by
like
Jack
a Lex
Kirby.
Luthor. Yeah, it's not even like a Lex Luthor kind of character. He's more like I'm more of a force, and I'm very calm. I have a calm demeanor, which makes it a little bit more frightening. And he's always like butting heads with Superman. But yeah, that's Darkseid basically.
Okay.
Yeah, he was created in 1970 by Jack Kirby. Famous, his Jack's work in DC, the New Gods, the Fourth Universe, blah blah blah. A lot of the stuff that Jack did for DC would, and I'm thank you for bringing this up because I was going to mention this. As we are longtime Archie readers, we know that one certain writer in Archie lifted a lot of Jack Kirby in his Knuckles run.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's funny to see Ian write Knuckles as an actual Kryptonian now. And everyone loves
full circle.
Everyone's waiting for the Martha. Why did you say that name? And I'm just saying, like,
God damn it, no!
I'm just waiting, like,
not Ian.
Don't even touch it.
We can't.
It's just like
but
in
I'm
the
saying,
opposite direction, please.
Well, here's the thing: is Penders named Knuckles' mother Lara Lee off of Superman's mother Lara Lor-Van.
Yes.
Well,
I do know this. I do know this.
That's not going to be referenced here.
Yeah, and he lifted like Echidnaopolis is basically the bottled city of Kandor. The naming conventions of Kryptonians with the hyphen. He put that on the female echidnas, and I'm just waiting for it's like, oh, Superman's like, oh, my father was Jor-El, my mother was Laura Lor-Van, and it's like, so it goes, my mother was named Lara once. I had a daughter too. I lost them in a legal battle.
Don't even touch that. Don't touch that.
I'm sure a fan will draw that strip.
I'm sure, but it's just so funny because it's like. If you read back those Knuckles issues, you see all the DC, all the Jack Kirby, all the stuff that he lifted, and him trying to think, oh, I'm clever, I'm world building. And then 20 years later, Ian's like, I'm going to put Knuckles in a Superman cape, and he's going to fly around, and they're going to talk and be buddies. And it's just like, that's just hilarious.
It is.
It is great. I think I talked about which moments I liked. I kind of wanted to get in. These are kind of a two-part question. We talked about audience. Is this a DC book for Sonic fans? Is this a Sonic book for DC fans? Like, I feel like after reading this and seeing the interactions online, that this is very much written for Sonic fans who don't know much about DC. Because, like, it seems like I haven't really seen many DC fans asking about the Sonic stuff. Because it's it's more of the Sonic fans asking about the DC. So I think we all kind of agree on that. Is there any other Radrey?
No.
Are you the other?
Oh, sorry.
Well, no. Before we move into that, I wanted to talk a little bit about Darkseid before we talk about that. So Darkseid himself, is he like he's before Thanos, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Let me ask you, which one do you like better, Darkseid or Thanos?
Okay. Movie wise, I like Thanos. Comic books, I'm comic books and animated, Darkseid all the way.
Okay.
I'm with you.
Why is he
Thanos
better in the comics? Oh, go on. You're saying it now.
Okay,
He's more he's more fleshed out than one noted. It's weird because Thanos' whole thing is the whole like in the comics,
Well,
unlike the movie. The movie they changed it up, and I'm really glad they changed for the movie. In the comics, Thanos is obsessed with death,
yeah, he's
like
like the
not
world's.
death itself,
He's
but like
like
literally the personification of death. He's obsessed with.
the way I've heard it explained, and somebody told me this once. He's like the world's biggest incel with death.
Yeah,
That's
like
what I've
A way
heard.
of looking at it.
a
Yeah,
little bit like that. Like Thanos
Except
is in
Death,
love with
she
death,
loves
and
Deadpool. She doesn't. She loves Deadpool. She
yeah.
doesn't love Thanos.
It's a whole big thing. I think it's overly complicated in the comics. Thanos, of course, is famous for the infamous snap panel, which they in a DC in a Marvel MCU, they made it so like he's obsessed with just balancing out the universe. That whole thing. I actually prefer that a lot more. I think it made Thanos more intriguing to me. In the comics and animated shows, if you haven't watched JLU, or I mean, just like period, the Superman the animated series and Justice League up to JLU 2. Darkseid is really that threatening. He's not even in it a lot. I think he's in it in like the beginning and then the end a little bit. And he's just a character that you just don't mess with. And you can feel that too. Like he goes down and you know how it goes. The Superman will always win. Um but at what cost? It's really great. So
In
I
the
always like
DC animated universe,
mhm.
Darkseid is basically the one guy because they couldn't really do Doomsday the way Doomsday was written in the comics or
Yeah.
portrayed. He is basically the one guy in the DC world that can literally kick Superman's ass. Like, no
Yes.
kryptonite needed. This dude, and likewise, there's a great scene in the finale of the Justice League cartoon where Superman, you know, he and Batman are fighting, Darkseid. Darkseid's making his big plan to conquer Earth, and Batman's doing all he can to like dodge, Darkseid's power, but ultimately, Superman gives this wonderful speech about how he feels that he lives in a world of cardboard where he has to just be in control because if he loses control, he's going to hurt someone because he's just that strong.
right.
He's stronger than anyone. But then he turns to Thanos, not Darkseid, and says, "But you're different. You can take it." And he basically says, "What we have now is a rare opportunity for me to cut loose and just show you how powerful I am." And Superman goes ham on him.
Yes. One of
And
my favorite
and
moments in
then
JLU.
Darkseid just shrugs it off.
Yeah, Darkseid still beats his ass. Not in the one, not completely one-sided. I mean, it was a good fight, but
Like,
Darkseid still one-upped him,
oh
and
yeah.
yeah, he still got the upper
Lex
hand.
Luthor had to save Superman. Let's put it that way.
Yes, yeah, very
Um.
great moment, and it goes a very great speech too.
Oh yeah.
Um, and yeah, the whole thing is just perfect. But that's why I like Darkseid a lot more than Thanos. Um, I think he didn't even show up in the Avengers cartoon either, right? They really
I
need
forget
to.
which version, but yeah, I
Oh,
don't think
it was just I forgot.
there's been a bunch of
What
Avengers
year?
cartoons, but yeah, I don't
Yeah,
think he's really shown up in much of them. But
which
yeah,
is a shame.
Thanos is good, but again, I think movie wise, what they did with him was really good. Especially compared to
Mhm.
what the Justice League movie did with Darkseid. But like in all other media, Darkseid is just he's just better. It's actually
Mhm.
funny. I was going to mention this earlier. Um, Death Battle did a Archie Sonic versus Wally West, and Wally West beat Sonic, which is this Wally West is the Flash that in this comic. But they also did Darkseid versus Thanos, and Darkseid basically kicked Thanos' ass. So yeah,
Yeah.
Darkseid is he is like the big. He's not the biggest cosmic threat in the DC. Well, there's a couple others that's getting into some really of the hardcore DC nerd stuff. But yeah, Darkseid's a great villain. It's kind of surprising that they're diving in with him. Like, it feels
Yeah, and not like I thought it was gonna be Lex Luthor, but I guess it makes sense with Darkseid.
like again, you look what Ian wrote with the Mega Man, and it was a team up of Wily and Eggman, which mad scientists, blah blah blah, and you
Hmm.
think like, okay, well that worked. You know, have Eggman and Lex Luthor kind of bald schemers, except Eggman's got the mustache and Lex is just bald. Um, start off with that, and then maybe work your way up to like a Brainiac, and then to Darkseid, as opposed to just going straight in with Darkseid. But it works. Um,
Yeah.
it works. I think I'm interested to see where it goes because it feels like again, pacing is going to be one of the interesting things. It'll be fun to see where we are at the end of this and to see, was the pacing all right? But
Yeah. I
kind of
feel like unless it's like completely craps the bed in the later issues, I think I'm gonna buy the trade when it's out too. I
Yeah,
know it's
it's nice
very early
artwork.
to
It's very
say. It's
nice.
only I know it's only issue one. But I feel like I might buy the trade. I might buy the trade when it's out.
the trade
I'm
is
really
coming
digging
out in
this.
September, and it can be
Yeah,
ordered on Amazon.
yeah. I'm gonna wait though before I pre-order it.
Yeah. But any other questions you have about Darkseid?
Uh, I think that about wraps it up because I mean, it sounds more like you're. I guess I don't quite understand why, Chauvel, you're more of a DC person rather than Marvel, but
Mhm.
it was. I think we've talked about this before, but I can't remember. Was there a reason why you've always chose DC over Marvel?
It's probably due to timing.
Okay, that's right. We did talk about
It was
this.
in the
Yes.
nine yeah, it was in the 90s and Batman was at the all-time high. He had really interesting books coming out. And meanwhile, Marvel was doing the Clone Wars with Spider-Man, which was kind of sucking.
It was not
Right.
a
Uh
Right.
good
Right.
story.
Okay.
yeah. So
I
I think it
see.
was the matter of timing and I would have gotten into it if it wasn't for certain story arcs. I would have been a bit in another universe. I would have been a huge Spider-Man fan. Who knows?
Okay. So, but for
Plus, you
you,
had Batman the animated series. That was that
Yeah, it was
helped.
Batman the animated
oh, that was
series
cool.
too.
Yeah, that
So
was really
and like
cool.
the not to mention Batman 89 and Batman Returns, Batman Forever, etc.
Okay. What about
We don't talk
yourself?
about Batman and Robin. Me?
Well, I was gonna ask about you, Melzil. I mean, what is it that makes you choose Marvel over DC?
Um, for me, and again, I really because I'm the youngest of the group, not by much, but by the youngest. So really, a lot of for me was the Marvel cartoons at the time. You had Fantastic Four, Iron Man, but really for me as a Fox Kids junkie, literally right after Power Rangers would be Spider Man and X Men.
Oh,
Hell,
okay.
there's
Yeah, the X Men
there's
show
this
was great. Yeah, the
X Men
Spider-Man one
show.
wasn't good, even though it's like 90% exposition. But yeah,
It's not as good as X Men, but I still
no,
like the Spider Man. They
I
did
did
a
too.
Spider
I
Man X Men
enjoyed it,
crossover,
mind you, after dunking on it for saying it's 90% exposition. But
but yeah, those ones just spoke to me more. I mean,
okay,
I love. I mean, it's one of those things where I think for me is I felt like the Marvel characters were more relatable to me at that
okay,
age, and even then, I feel like I love Superman and Batman, but I don't think they're as great as people. I mean, I do think Superman gets dunked on unfairly by a lot of
Mm-hmm.
modern fans, especially by a lot of Batman fans.
Mm-hmm.
But they're good. But I just think Marvel, those heroes and are a lot more engaging to like the average person. Maybe I don't know. Um, yeah,
okay. Because back then, because when I used to buy the Archie Sonic comic, because that was the only comic I bought. I mean, I just wasn't really into comics. Because like the one main problem I always had with comics is, well, read issue 35 B. I'm like, dude, I'm not reading that. I'm not spending all my
I
time
know, as a
digging
comic
through
fan,
it.
I can't even argue, and I hate people who are saying like, "It's not that hard, bro. Just pick up any issue you like." It's like, No, I'm gonna have to, as a longtime comic fan, I'm gonna have to say there's some truth to that. There's some truth of folks like, where the hell do I start? There are crossovers, there's issue this, there's issue that.
It's
It
why
does
so many
become overly
people are
complicated.
intimidated with Archie Sonic because
Yeah.
Right.
there's very little entry points. I mean, I
Hmm.
know people have said, "Oh, you can just start with Ian's around." I'm like, you can, but Ian, what people don't really realize about Ian's Archie work is Ian loved early Archie. Like all of the stuff that he did, he built off of the other stuff with love and reverence.
Yes.
Maybe he disagreed with certain character choices from some of their creators, but he, you know, if you go again, I hate that I reference this all the time, but if you listen to some of the Bubblecasts, like listen to him talk about Enerjack and just how cool Enerjack was, like and how he
Hmm.
wanted to use him, and how he did end up using him. He ended up using him twice, and
Hmm.
Yeah.
so but the whole thing is, and that's the crazy thing with comics, and that is both a blessing and a curse, which is why I know on this show we've talked about IDW, and it's easy to fall off the wagon because it's been spinning its wheels a bunch. I
Oh
think
Hmm.
yeah.
they've started moving forward. I'm going to be recording a mini episode tomorrow afternoon about issue 77. It'll be a little solo run, but
Hmm.
I actually, and oddly enough, both that issue and this issue, it felt like Ian was channeling some of his Archie roots, especially in '77. Um, so, but again, it's the getting back on part that's really hard. It was hard for Archie. It's hard for any mainstream comic, and that's why I kind of like this whole thing is because it's five issues. It's there's a start and there's an end, and there's no we're going to cross over for 20 issues with this and yada yada. There's a clear start in beginning and an ending. So there's that.
Okay. No, I mean what I was gonna say is because my dad used to read comics, like he used to read DC. DC was his thing, right? He was always picking up like God, what's that guy's name? The guy who reports on Superman. Help me out here. Red
Jimmy
hair.
Olsen.
Jimmy
What?
Olsen.
Jimmy Olsen.
Jimmy
That's
Olsen.
it. He had like the
Yeah.
Jimmy Olsen comic book. That was his thing, right? And then I guess when the
Man's
way
best friend.
well, yeah, I mean the way I understood comics, or at least DC, was like obviously it's filtered through my dad because he's the one who bought these things and read them. And I never really got into Marvel, but even before like the MCU came out, like with Disney, because I had no understanding of it. But Marvel, in his eyes, was always, well, it's like DC but weird. Like, okay,
Well,
do you agree with this
it's interesting
assessment?
that you mentioned that.
Yes.
Jeez, it's like it's up to the point where they both can be pretty weird, but I understand if Marvel's a little bit less entry point friendly.
Well,
Okay.
actually, it's interesting. This reminds me of something that Stan Lee talked about, where he
Hmm.
talked about the difference between DC and Marvel. He talked about how with DC, you're in these fictitious cities, Metropolis, Gotham City, Central City, Blank City.
Okay.
These, were they're fictitious cities. They're
Okay.
not real places. Sometimes they're in conjunction with like other real world places on the Earth, but for the most part, these are fictitious characters in a fictitious setting. Whereas like Marvel, everyone's in fucking New York.
That's
Why would
true.
anyone want to be a villain in New York City when you got Daredevil in Hell's Kitchen, Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, the Avengers, like the X-Men are back in New York now? It's like it should be in all theories the safest city on the planet, or though in reality it should be basically a barren wasteland because there's been so many fights there. But they're all in a
Yeah.
real world place. And one thing he talked about is, well, things have changed on the DC side, is that in the olden days, for kids, the only character that they really had to relate to was Robin. Like all of the teen characters were sidekicks. Wonder Girl, Kid Flash, Aqualad, Robin. They would form the first Teen Titans group. Well, everyone else is an adult. But then you get to Marvel, where the X-Men were all originally teenagers. Spider-Man was a teenager. And you got to grow up with them. So it became like, so their struggles were more akin to everyday struggles, though one could argue, it's okay, let Spider-Man be happy. Let him marry and Mary Jane actually stay married, Marvel, damn it. But so yeah, that's kind of
at this point it's out of spite they're not doing it.
yeah, absolutely.
It's like
so
a
again,
Amy and Sally thing, kind of.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh my god, yes.
Yes.
No, it's like
it feels like they're doing it out of malice. Like this,
Okay.
like say, hey, what? Like let's make sure we piss off the fans today. I see it as a joke, but there are some days I'm like, I don't think they're
I
joking
guess this
anymore.
would make Sally Gwen Stacy and Amy Mary Jane.
Yeah, it's like no, they're
And this
they
isn't
cannot
me
be
making a
together,
joke
but they
of,
can be.
them dropping Sally off a bridge or a building every chance that they get.
Well, Sega doesn't really care
Spider
about
Gwen
Sally
stuff.
too much, so it's like, yeah, do whatever you
Yeah.
want. Have her get blown up. Have her turn into a robot.
Well, they did prevent them from killing her back in the day. So there was one time. There was a one
Yeah, they
time
get
in the
the
90s.
one win.
They get the one
Yeah,
win.
you can't eliminate
But,
her from existence, but you can do horrible things. That's fine. Have fun.
You have to resurrect her, and she can't, be permanently that
I'm not
way.
your dad. God isn't real. Do whatever you want.
So this is actually kind of roundabout way of kind of talking about my next question, which is
Yes.
how easy was this to pick up and read? I think that's going to be your mileage is going to vary.
Yeah, that I have actually a question about
I feel like this
but
is
yes.
very easy to read to pick up. But go ahead. Oh, did I get cut off?
No, I didn't get cut off.
Oh,
okay.
we're waiting for you, Radrey.
Oh, you waiting for
wanted
me?
to say something.
No, yeah, I had a question about this. Because I thought you were going to interject first. No. First off, I guess two questions really. What did you think about how the characters were introduced? Did you like how the characters were all introduced?
Yes.
Melza?
Yeah, I would say yes. Yeah,
I had a big issue with
straight
this.
and to the point. Okay.
My big issue was, I understand the way they're introduced is fine. It's perfectly fine. I mean, it's cute. It has nice dialogue. It works. I mean, in terms of being an average, run-of-the-mill sort of crossover.
It's following the formula.
Yeah, it follows the formula. It's not bad, per se. Actually, I have one more question about Darkseid before we... I'll save that at the end. But one thing I will say is a lot of the times, if I was not a Sonic fan and if I was not a DC fan, I would not touch this. But
Absolutely fair.
Well, here's the one thing I was actually thinking about in terms of crossovers. I mentioned earlier, Cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue, right? Where they have all these different cartoons that come together and they build up this world of the anti-drug PSA. Or you have
all your favorite cartoon characters just become fucking narcs.
Yeah, right? I mean, that's a good way to look at it. I've never looked at it that way.
That was the
before.
90s.
Yes.
That was the 90s.
Yeah, when all your friends are narcs. Damn. Hardcore. Anyway, yeah, no, it made me think about other, giant crossover movies or just franchises in general. And I was thinking, which ones really work? Which ones are, culturally relevant? Which ones become popular, And I really think that kind of comes down to, number one, do you know who these characters are? You probably would not watch Cartoon All-Stars if you didn't know who Garfield was, right? Okay, let me rephrase that. Sorry. You would probably only watch this if Garfield was in it, right? That's what I meant to say. But otherwise, if you didn't know any of these characters, why would you watch this, right? So, I mean, there's other things. I was thinking of other, big movies, Alien versus Predator, right? You have, two different types.
Freddy versus Jason's.
Yeah, Freddy versus Jason. But the thing is...
Destroy all monsters.
Yeah, destroy all monsters. But I'm also thinking, too, what would make you want to watch something like this? either A, you're a big fan of those two slasher movies, Freddy versus Jason, or like with Alien versus Predator, you would probably just watch it because either A, you like those two characters, or you heard that the movie was good. I mean, I know it's not great. It's what's his fucking face, Paul W.S. Anderson or something. But anyway,
Hey, that original Mortal Kombat movie still pretty fun.
and still pretty cheese too. Those
That's the
$500
reason-
those $500 fucking sunglasses, man. But
Say what you want, that Goro animatronic still slaps to this day.
It is good. It is good.
What would we like to see going forward in this miniseries? I mean, and
what am I
like-
expecting? I just
just like what would you like to see? Like things that
I'm
you know,
not
it's like
asking for much. I just want, it's very paint by numbers. You're doing fun things with it. I'm actually gonna say the only thing I'm looking forward to is like what we already talked about it. I want Selena and Rouge. I want that interaction. But that's it. That's like the most thing. Ian, DC editorial, whatever, do your thing. I have after this first issue, I have a little bit of faith. Let's see if that changes down the line.
yeah, you know, I kind of like, you know, going back to this whole crossover formula is that these stories are often, you know, and this is not to be condescending, but it's very juvenile and it's like depth and complexity, but that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. You know, if you keep the tone the tone and the vibes as it is, I think this is going to be, you know, a very successful. It's not going to please everyone, but it's probably going to make a fair amount of money. And with the way Ivo, because again, the CEO of Sega of America is named Ivo or Evo or however you want to call him. It's weird. I love it though. Radrey's intimidated by the guy.
Very much so.
He talked about how this was kind of initially a 1-year thing, but kind of also hinted at that there may be more. And kind of in this case of
Yeah, what was that?
how
Is that him throwing shade at IDW? Like you don't get a certain number, you're done. IDW, you're done.
well, we've talked about that before, but it is interesting because one, I do think we're going to get a follow up to this where we'll probably get into more maybe Selena Rouge, some of the other, you know, I don't know who the Chaotix would be in DC, but you know they could be various
That's
characters.
a good question.
Ooh, Vector is Martian Manhunter.
I thought Vector was gonna. Yeah, he's Martian Manhunter, but they have an interaction with Killer
I
Croc.
don't know who that is, but okay. All right, I'm with you.
Yeah, roll with it.
I will.
But I imagine we'll get more of that as the time goes on. From a business standpoint, this is interesting because, you know, obviously the IDW comics are still going on, and it seems like Sega's business, you know, its business with IDW, criticisms from our end aside, though I think it's starting to realize that maybe the criticisms we're having is more on the Sega side and of how they're doing things with their internal reviews. I have a rant on that. I'll say that for another day. But it is interesting because Sega, as a history, has often tried to play with the big boys, but has not brought their A game and has kind of often looked very amateurish, especially their dealings with Archie back in the day and sort of the lawsuits where it's just like, you know, like even on their video game side, you know, you go from the Genesis and then you do the Saturn, and you know the Saturn just fails everywhere but Japan, and it feels like they often make very amateurish business decisions. So but maybe they've gained some experience with working with Paramount and the success with the movies where they can go to DC. You know, this is one of the two big comic publishers in the US. This is, you know, these are,
It seems like
Sonic's
recently we're
popular.
making some right moves. I think Evan stated that, you know, the IDW comic is not going anywhere. It's just that they're understaffed and having people review the comic before it's out, it's just been a slow process. So I get that. I think the review system. I'm very, very curious about how that works because it seemed like that's slowing down the pipeline a lot.
And it that was kind of one of the things I didn't, I was gonna save, but it was kind of like a
Mhm.
case of like, they say like they're understaffed. I'm like, that's some 20-year-old, 30-year-old's dream job is to like, you know, give me all the Sonic scripts. I'll go over and fact check them. I'll do it for the cheap too. So it's like, I'm sure they're like, take whoever monitors Ken Pender's social media account,
Yeah,
whatever
right.
semi-intern who does that. Let them
I think
overlook the comics. Give them something fun to
I
do,
think it's
as opposed
more
to
less a lore thing of keeping the lore right and more of like, okay, let's check to make sure something doesn't get us sued or contradicts the game or any other PR advertisement that we're doing.
I think they could probably just.
I think they're working. How do I put this? They're doing it too much. I
Oh,
don't know. I feel like
absolutely.
they're going too far with the whole double, triple dog checking here.
I's dotted and T's
Eh.
crossed.
Yeah.
But we all have thoughts on that.
Yeah, but that's not what it's about. But I say that we had a really good conversation about this comic. I'm kind of
I
glad that we
do
did.
kind of have one final thought for us, as
Oh,
we've all
shoot.
kind of seen like this is, um, if this is successful, which is starting to look like that it's going to be, at least
Mm-hmm.
all the all the buzz I've seen online has been very positive, which is
Mm-hmm.
nice to see for once in the Sonic fandom. You know, very very rarely do
For
Sonic
once.
fans.
Oy.
Really, oy vey, I know. Um, because it seems like a case of, if this is successful, which looks like the new, and I'm pretty sure they'll continue to do, Sonic Justice League. What other franchises would you like to see Sonic crossover with?
That's a good question.
Dragon
Wow, I'm
Ball.
trying to think of anything.
Dragon Ball. Sorry. Don't mind the accent.
I know.
Just to talk a
I
little bit
mean,
about that.
no, that's.
Hmm? Go
I
on.
mean, that's something fans have wanted. Sonic, Dragon Ball, Super Saiyan versus Super Sonic. That's something people
That's
wanted.
the thing. Like, I get it, and I'm also like, I don't want to see that either. But I understand why people would want it.
I don't know. To me, when you brought up you bringing up all this stuff, Malzilla, and all talking about all this, I think I'm picturing like some kid walking, walking down the stairs from his bedroom and opening up his favorite cereal box, and then like, oh, they got Godzilla in there, and they got the Sonic in there, and they got all these other ones in there, and this is what I'm picking up, and then you digest the entire thing. It's awful for you, but it's so delicious because all your friends are there, and it's coated with sugar, so much damn sugar.
It makes you feel like a kid again, and
Yes.
Yeah.
that's kind of goes to me as like, I want a Sonic Godzilla. I you know I've been pounding that drum for inundating Ian's social medias and Sega and Toho. It's like, you know it's starting to, Sonic's starting to get some cred. Let's have some fun, and not everything has to be canon. It's okay to accept
Yeah.
these little stories, because, and we just had all that Sonic stuff on the Japanese website released within the last 2 days.
Don't get me started
Conversation in
on
and of
that.
itself.
Yep.
But it's like, it's okay to have fun things in a fun franchise. Like, you know,
You could destroy your health for a few days, and then you'll be fine. I'm sorry. That's a
it's
very
like,
that's a very sardonic way to put it, but yes.
yeah, I mean, again, it's like that. It's like, you know what? Let me just have fun with this shit. It's like, let me watch freaking, you know,
Yeah, give me my cereal box full of sugar and
exactly.
let me
Let
just
me
enjoy my
watch
Saturday morning
Perfect
cartoon.
Chaos slap Biolante with their water tentacles, and then get slapped in
Yeah.
turn by Biolante's plant tentacles.
And don't you try
I
to
swear
sell me
that
into that
sounds.
magic spoon stuff. I don't like that. I'm looking for
Yeah.
like the real stuff. Like, and yes, I
I
am an
want
adult.
the Dakota ring. I
Yeah.
want the Dakota ring.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, like, it's okay to have fun. Stop being a slave to the worst word in the English gamer, geek language of canon.
Oh,
I
okay.
hate canon. Nothing's
Canon
canon. Nothing
flakes.
ever will be. Nothing. It's canon. Everything's canon.
Yeah.
There we
Yeah.
go.
Cannon flakes.
Giant
They're
cannon.
not
Hmm.
exactly.
Uh,
But
I wanted to
oh, go ahead.
interject here a little bit more before we wrap
Hmm.
things up here. Um, you mentioned earlier that I'm losing my train of thought here. No, you mentioned earlier about like what is it that was the I'm burning here. Oh, I wanted to ask you about like Dark Side, right? Sorry to
Yeah.
pivot back to this a little bit.
Oh no.
That
Hmm.
little thing that comes out of the sky. That's new to this DC
Yeah.
world?
Yeah.
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 Okay, cuz I thought it was like a Dark
Usually it's
Glad
Side.
either
you're
World
wrong.
World or Apocalypse, and they decide to go with something entirely different, which I'm cool with it.
Ah, now I remember what I was going to say. You asked me about the future. What would you want to see for the future of this comic?
Hmm.
Yeah, a little bit of a diatribe here, but I did have kind of a bit of a problem with like the way like they're introducing all the characters and how they're being introduced. I mean, sure, it's very paint by numbers, as you said. I really feel that way, and it sort of made me think of like example, like sometimes you have like famous movies where they introduce certain characters and they have a way of like giving you some exposition to where it's not really like according exposition in general, I should say. You need exposition to explain the situation, what's going on, who are the characters. You're not confused, so you feel involved with what's going on. But here, I sort of feel like they should have done a little bit more or had it be a bit more clever. Like an
Okay.
example, like with Guardians of the Galaxy, the movie, right? Where they have like the police lineup and then they introduce all the characters. Like it's sort of like this interesting build up, like, oh wow, why are they all in prison, right? Or like how Tarantino introduces some of his characters, like in Pulp Fiction, like they just talk about burgers, right? They have a very casual conversation, but you get an idea of like who Sam Jackson is, or who John Travolta is, just based upon their
Does
tastes,
Marcellus
right?
Wallace look like a bitch?
Yes. Well, I mean, no, he doesn't. I just got shot. I'm dead now. Yeah, you set me up for that one.
I gotcha.
Uh,
uh,
but yes,
gotta
but
rewatch
that's what
that.
I'm saying. That's one of my biggest critiques. And I said earlier that I gave this book 2.5 bags of cash out of 5 because so far all I'm seeing is this is a cash grab. You just want my money. Like, I get it. I mean, I like what you're doing. I like what I'm seeing, but
Gotta respect
it's
the game.
like, yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, it's like Cartoon All Stars. I get it. It's about marijuana. I mean, and it makes me sort of ask myself, so what is this about? Is this just about the cash, or is this just about the cash? I don't know what else there is to this. I sort of want something more to this. Like I was saying earlier about how, crossovers being culturally relevant or important in, the zeitgeist or something that is popular at the time that sort of means something. That's when you make a crossover that, registers with people. Like, I guess you could say the John Q public or the larger public at large. Because this is sort of like what I'd like to see from Sonic. I don't want to just be in this niche all the time where it's always like, well, he's one of them weird Sonic fans who reads those Sonic books, and I don't know. He does these quirky things by himself. Like, I don't want to. I want to be a part of the larger conversation here. That's my main issue with this book, and that's why I give it such a low score. And rant.
Yeah, that's fine.
Hmm.
Thoughts?
I mean,
No,
here's
like I
what they're
said,
trying to do.
Radrey, I get your point of view. I do, but I'm gonna be a seal. I'm gonna clap. I'm gonna give them my money when the trade is out.
Yeah,
But
no, I
at
enjoyed
least I
reading
can
it.
acknowledge. At least I can acknowledge where the flaws are. The general, like, what is the purpose of this of this crossover, other than like DC and Sega having huge dollar signs in their eyes. But I'm enjoying it so far. I do get the criticism though. But you know what?
At the
It
end
was
of
a
the day,
nice
it's
issue.
about having fun. It's
Yeah.
about having fun.
Yeah, sure. I mean, not. I do agree. It is about having fun, but I mean, I'm not to step on your toes here, Malzil. But it's to me, it's like sometimes I see these creators who make these things, and they're like, "Well, I just make popcorn movies. I make popcorn enjoyment." And it's just sort of like, come on, man. That's like saying it's okay. It's just garbage. I like making garbage. Like, come on, don't tell me you like making garbage. Tell me you tried something new. I mean, I understand. Maybe there's some limitations involved. Maybe there's like some money problems. Maybe there's some politics. I get it. I don't want to be involved with any of that. I don't care about that stuff. I care about what's in front of me. So I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm like apologizing for some odd reason. I don't know why. But it's just it's two and a half bags out of 5. That's it.
That's fine. Fair.
I derailed the conversation. What you were
No,
going
no,
places.
Yeah.
It's a fair, criticism about this
I
stuff.
think you had a fair.
That's a
point
very
on that.
pregnant pause there. like whoa, he's angry.
Well,
No, I'm not angry.
He's angry. No, it's fun. It's why I like having you guys on, because we all have different points of view, and we all don't consume and analyze media the same way, and it's always, I think, and we've all been on kind of the opposite, because I know I've been in the cases where when the general public likes something but you don't like it, and yet everyone else does, it feels kind of weird. But at the same time, it's like, again, this stuff is it is it's a cash grab the same way like freaking Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles were to sell toys. I mean, Transformers. The whole point of that thing was to sell toys, and you know what? We all bought them up, and we're still buying them 30, 40 years later. So, I mean, you can go some very cynical takes on this stuff, and
the
they're
kidult
not
market
wrong.
is no joke. I'll tell you.
I mean, look at the Gunpla market in Japan. I mean, I'll say this: Gundam TV shows are like actually rather poignant, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how poignant those shows are. They're there to sell model kits.
Ah, that's the thing I wanted to say. I remember. Okay, we were talking about Sega earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I think their biggest problem. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, but their biggest problem is always arrogance. And I guess when they can get over this arrogance that they have for some reason, I think we'll have great Sonic media. But until then, we have what we have. I don't really think there's much of a... I definitely know there's a lot of adults who like Sonic the Hedgehog, so I don't know why they're not pushing the more kidult angle. Or maybe they just don't have the capital for it. I don't know.
Could be a variety of things.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, it's probably a variety of things, yeah. But, yeah, I don't know. It's fine. my opinion hasn't changed much, but I mean, I do appreciate hearing other opinions other than just my own, because it's just sort of like I've said before in other podcasts, where, sometimes you watch a movie or you read a book, and your initial impression of what said book or said movie is like, I just didn't enjoy it. I didn't like it. But I really do feel like it's important to listen to other voices about what it is that made something special for them, or why something's culturally relevant, or why something's, should be considered enjoyable. Because that way you're getting more out of the experience. Because there's probably some things you just really don't understand. Because, oh boy, this day and age we live in, there's a lot of things that we don't know.
Yeah, that's fair. So as we're kind of wrapping up, I kind of wanted to ask you guys, because obviously we've gone over issue 1. Would you guys want to do this over each issue, or would you rather reconvene at the end of it, and we can kind of...
I think at the end, since they're gonna have a trade in September, I think like at the end, yeah.
Yeah,
it's
let's
a short
do that.
Series. It's not even like 12 issues. If it was 12 issues, I would let's go into like the halfway point. But since it's only like 5, I said let's wait till it ends.
Okay, so yeah, so we'll do our another episode in July, and we'll have the full picture then, and kind of see what worked.
Granted,
and
there's
what...
no delays, which we'll see.
Well, it's DC, so again, it kind of goes to the whole point of, Sega's playing with the big boys now. You know, if you're
You're
playing with the
on
big
our
boys,
time. You're on our
yeah,
dime.
yeah, you're on the Warner Brothers time, and yeah, Time Warner. Time is money, friend.
Yeah, I guess if if anybody in the comments down below actually likes our conversation with this, we will do other issues, but you got to want it because we don't have a Patreon or any of those, one of those extra service
let
things.
us know if you want us if we want to do more of them.
Yes,
but I think other than that, I think the best thing is to do it.
Yeah. For
$20,
I'm whatever you want, my friends.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I if people are quasi interested, I can do mini episodes on them. But other than that, I say let's reconvene at the finale and see.
Yeah, I'd agree with
what
that.
worked, what worked, what didn't, and probably by that time they'll probably announce the sequel or have another one, and we can say, is this a good idea, or are they really just cash grabbing?
Yep, that's what I'm interested in. I want to see, because usually, okay, yeah, I'll just interject here a little bit more. A lot of the time, sometimes I watch some of these properties, like I'll watch terrible movies, or I'll read terrible books, or books that I'm clearly not enjoying, and I know somebody in the back of my head, somebody like a angel devil personas behind me saying, Radley, this is the sunk cost fallacy. Radley, what are you doing? You got other things to do. You have responsibilities. You're like, yeah. Well, it's I have patience. I want to show that I have patience and I can appreciate something because life begins after you leave the comfort zone, So join us on this journey. I hope you enjoy our conversation. If you have some thoughts or I'm about to say prayers. If you have some thoughts or prayers to tell us, goddamn, don't pray for us.
I was going to say, the world's a crazy, messed up place right now, and if you want to enjoy us in some of the most plain and simple escapism, hop on board the Sonic Coast to Coast train, because we are chugging along out of the station. We are chugging along at the speed of sound, or light, or whatever rhymes.
So what are we ending on? There's no. Was there any good panel lines we could throw in? There's no audio cues, so
there's no audio cues.
Yes.
Keep watching the stars. I don't know.
I'm Batman.
Yeah, there we go. Yay, that's a good one. I'm gonna take that.
It is actually really funny. Is that final side thought is that in the animated Crypto and the Super Pets movie that came out and starred Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as Crypto the Super Dog.
Yes.
Nick Cage was Superman and Keanu Reeves voiced Batman.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So Keanu Reeves has voiced Batman. He's voiced Shadow, and now Shadow is Batman. It's a circle. It's the conspiracy. Everything is connected. Buy gold.
To maybe I should get a spliced voice of just him saying, "I'm Shadman." Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Oh,
don't Google that, please. Nobody Google that. Just nod and look away. Just don't Google it. And that, my friends, is the end of our show.
Goodbye.
Well, thanks for everyone for tuning in. Again, this is Malzilla from the Sonic Coast to Coast podcast. Chauvel, thank you for joining us once again. Radrey, it's all a good pleasure. You'll probably be hearing from us again, listeners, very soon. We are going to do a special SAT-AM recap with some special guests as we kind of look back on the show that we spent the last 3-4 months reviewing before we start our journey into Sonic X, where we really do got to go fast.
Oh boy, yeah, I should probably tell our audience about that Sonic X thing. This is going to be kind of a different review. The things I have to say about Sonic X, they're mostly all philosophy. So if philosophy bores you, sorry, first of all, but yeah, I mean, Japanese anime, it's a different kind of beast. The way they put together stories and the way the beats flow, it's kind of an acquired taste. So you're going to have to just be patient. I know maybe like, I didn't come here for the boring philosophy stuff, but it's relevant. I'm telling you. I need to stress that before any of our listeners who've made it this far, know, so they have an idea of what they're getting themselves into. It's like you're gonna probably start out like, why is Radley talking about Kierkegaard? Why is he talking about Rene Descartes? Like weird, random. Because I did.
Why aren't we just dunking on Chris Thorndike like everyone else?
Yeah, well, you're probably gonna be. Go on, sorry.
We'll be dunking on him.
Oh, yeah. Well, you'll probably say things like, why are we talking about philosophers? Bring us back to Sonic X. I'm telling you, it's going to be relevant. It's going to be heavy, but I hope you enjoy that.
Stomp you later, coasters.
Bye.
Bye.
Later.
I'm Shadow, the Hedgehog. I was created to bring order and justice to the humans.